Public Schools Board of Education General Meeting of April 17th, 2017. Mr. Sanders, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonifield.
Present.
Mrs. Bradford.
Here.
Mrs. Frank.
Here.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Present.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Centers is here. President Burden.
Here. We have a quorum. Thank you. We have Pledge of Allegiance is next on our agenda this evening. Mrs. Frank, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, please arise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening's meeting is a general meeting. What we mean by that kind of meeting is that the items that are coming before the board this evening have typically been discussed at least two prior meetings, a study session and a committee of the whole. You may or may not see the length of discussion before votes on items. Please know that that is not because we are taking any items lightly, but rather that it is because we have discussed them. We had to beat them to death already. So if you're interested in some more discussion of the items that are coming before the board for a vote, I really do encourage you to either attend or tune in on cable live, or to come up to or pull up our website and pull up the meetings that are taped and available after the fact. You'll hear a lot of discussion, a lot of question and answer, and so forth. Usually more detail than a lot of folks want to hear, but a lot of discussion and detail on the items that are coming before the board. We do welcome everyone tonight. We certainly do have a full house, and that's always really exciting for our Board of Education. Our board members make a concerted effort to get out into our buildings and see firsthand what's going on a day-to-day basis, and we are thrilled when members of our public do the same with the workings of the board. It's what each person does in our district, whether they are students or parents, volunteers, staff members, board members, we're all working toward the same end, and it's exciting to see what one another does toward that end to get our students ready for a productive adult life. If you'd like to follow along on the agenda this evening, if you are present with us, they can be found just outside the door on the table. If you are watching from home, you can pick up an agenda online. They can be found on our website, which is at www.livoniapublicschools.org. If you hover over the board tab and drop down to the agendas, you can follow along with this evening's activities. Also want to let you know that we do have several honorees this evening, and that's always exciting for us. This board makes a concerted effort to bring in students and staff and their accomplishments and to highlight those at our board meetings. We do have a number of them this evening. Wanted to let you folks know that if your student is being honored this evening, feel free, if you'd like, as they're receiving their honor at the podium, to move to a position where you can take a better picture if you'd like to. You're certainly welcome to do so. Also, we're going to take a break after item 3G, which is the update from our superintendent. That break will be so that we can all take a few moments, just about 5 to 10 minute break, and congratulate the honorees of the evening. If you would like, if our art students would like to come up and take pictures, or really if their parents would like the art students to come up so that they can take pictures, please feel free to do so at that time. Let's see here. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 3, communications, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Jenkins.
Thank you. Good evening, President Burton, members of the board, Superintendent Oquist. We have just a few schools left to feature in this year's Student Art Gallery program, but the quality of the artwork just keeps being amazing, as you can see on the board behind you. On display for this month, we have works by 5 students from Holmes Middle School who are learning some pretty fantastic techniques from art teacher Joan Haber and student teacher Miss Birchler, both of whom have joined us this evening. Thanks for being here. The artwork is truly sprucing up our boardroom, our board meeting room this month. At this time, I'd like to introduce the 5 students who have been selected to have their works on display. The first is Kaylee Brunette, and Kaylee is a 7th grader. Kaylee, come on up. The certificates read Livonia Public Schools Certificate of Recognition, Student Art Gallery Featured Artist, selected to represent the Holmes Middle School Art Department at the Board of Education office April 17th, 2017. These are signed by the superintendent and myself. And Kaylee, do you mind pointing out which pieces are yours on the board?
My pieces are the rainbow spray paint with the red brick wall
Okay.
and the owl sitting on a tree with a sunset background.
Okay, excellent. Very, very, very cool. So each student this month has 2 pieces on the board. Okay, thank you, Kaylee. Congratulations. Next, we have Katie Kaffel, and Katie was unable to join us this evening, but I'm going to do one quick sweep for the room just to make sure. Okay, I will make sure Katie receives her certificate. Katie is an 8th grade student, and her artwork has her name next to it, I think on the right-hand side or in the center. Okay, all right, I'll make sure she gets her certificate. Next, we have Celeste Goslin. Celeste is an 8th grade student. And which pieces are yours, Celeste?
Mine is the cat eye and the pencil drawing of a bucket with like a pin in the background.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Next, we have Sophia Nava. Sophia is also an 8th grader. Sophia?
The bowling pin and the one next to it to the left.
Okay, so that's pencil and, is it colored pencil on the left? Okay, very nice. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Emma Plazai. I hope I said that right, 8th grader. Emma? Did I pronounce that correctly? Emma Plazai. And if you'd point out your pieces.
My pieces are the 2 pictures of the human girls. One's a brunette in a green dress, and the other has, I guess she's kind of a brunette, and she has fruit in her hair, and they're both paintings.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. As you know, art education is celebrated in our school district through a wide array of instructional courses and independent study opportunities. In addition to the local units of the National Art Honor Society we have at our high schools. Each spring, Livonia Public Schools shares a nice cross-section of all of that talent with the community during the Fine Arts Festival at the Livonia Civic Library. The grand opening for the 41st annual event happened a week ago tonight, and the dozens and dozens of pieces will remain on display in the second floor gallery at the library, as well as scattered throughout the library. So be sure to check it out if you haven't already. Also, be sure to stop by the lobby just outside the boardroom here to see the awesome works on display. There's quite a variety this month from students at Frost, Emerson, and Franklin. And with that, I'd like to thank our students, our Holmes Middle School students, for sharing their work with us. And I ask for one final round of applause for these.
Are there questions or comments from the board?
Great work.
It is amazing. Number one, thank you for sharing your work with us, because as I said to some of the families who were here earlier, without your work, we have beige walls, and that's it. So we really appreciate your sharing your work. And on top of that, we are absolutely amazed by your creativity. There are a couple of artists on this board, but not too many. Most of us are absolutely dumbfounded with how you can create what you do. I can create a little bit on a landscape on the ground with some plants, but that's where my creativity ends. But thank you so much for sharing your beautiful work with us. We really appreciate it, and we congratulate you. The next item on our agenda is item 3B, recognition of gymnastics state champion Jessica Week, Stevenson High School. Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the resolution recognizing Stevenson High School senior Jessica Week for achieving a 2017 Michigan High School Athletic Association Division II State Championship title in the uneven bars event.
Support.
We have a motion by myself, Colleen Burton, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mrs. Jenkins.
Thank you. Thank you, President Burton. Just as the Fine Art Festival has become a sure sign that spring is springtime in LPS, so has my next item. It is so incredible, and we should never underestimate the amount of grit and perseverance it takes for a student athlete to reach the height of his or her sport during their high school career. The endless hours of practice, the drive that it takes to improve on your last performance, the mental toughness it takes to remain focused and remain confident, the list goes on. What an impressive combination of physical and mental skill it must take to earn the title of state champion. And of course, we all know that this incredible achievement is accomplished while the athletes are studying for exams, doing those lab reports, and researching and writing those papers, staying on top of the workload that comes along with being a student in LPS. We have a tradition here of recognizing those students who do all of this and land right at the top of their sport. But in doing so, we're also honoring the hundreds of student athletes who work just as hard but may have come up just shy of a state title. They all make us extremely proud. Tonight we're recognizing a familiar face. I'd like to invite Miss Jessica Week to join me at the podium. You may recall Jessica from last year's state champ presentations for gymnastics. The senior captain on Lisa Broomfield's Livonia Blue gymnastics team has not only continued with excellence in her sport, she has even improved on that excellence this year. As you will see from the resolution we've prepared for Jessica. You can add this resolution to your collection. I'd like to, at this time, invite Board President Colleen Burton to join us at the podium and read and present the resolution.
Congratulations to Jessica. I have the honor of not only being able to watch Jessica perform gymnastically, but also to have her be a friend of my daughter. So when we do have that special tie, it's a real joy as a board member to be able to present a resolution such as this to you. Whereas the trustees of the Livonia Public Schools School District Board of Education are desirous of publicly recognizing the outstanding accomplishments of students who distinguish themselves during the pursuit of their public education in the school district. And whereas Jessica Week, a senior at Stevenson High School, has distinguished herself by achieving the 2017 Michigan High School Athletic Association Division II Gymnastics State Championship title on the uneven bars. And whereas in achieving this honor, Jessica captured this title with a score of 9.325. And whereas this adds to the outstanding accomplishments Jessica has achieved as a Stevenson High School gymnast and senior captain of the Livonia Blue gymnastics team, including tying the school record with a 9.50 on the uneven bars, obtaining first place in regionals in the all-around competition and vault, achieving a personal best, career high, all-around score of 37.20, and being recognized as a scholar athlete and an all-state gymnast. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Jessica Week for her outstanding accomplishments in athletics and wish her well in her future endeavors as she applies the discipline and perseverance needed to excel in sports and to all areas of her life. Signed by Dan Centers, Secretary.
As a senior, I will be moving on to Michigan State next year, and so I just wanted to say that it's been a great opportunity to go to Livonia Public Schools for these past 13 years and also to take part in their great athletic programs. Thank you.
Jessica and I would also like to recognize her coach, Lisa Broomfield, who we all know as Clesa. And Athletic Director Lori Hyman. Lisa and Lori are emblematic of so many of our coaches and athletic directors in the district who go above and beyond, way beyond a paid position to provide excellent opportunities, not only athletically for our students, but to reach the soul of that student, to let them know that athletics is important, but becoming a fine young lady and a fine young man are far more important. And we'd like to thank you for all that both of you do. The next item, oh, I'm sorry, roll call, sorry about that. Thank you. We have a motion on the, by myself, Colleen Burton, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
President Burton.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Excuse me. Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Now the next item on our agenda is item 3C, gifts to Emerson Middle School and Franklin High School food pantries. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the generous monetary donations and food contributions to the food pantry programs at Emerson Middle School and Franklin High School, totaling $25,500 for the Emerson Food Pantry and $10,880 for the Franklin Food Pantry.
Support.
Read the rest of the.
I can.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Livonia Kids and Families, $22,000. Livonia AM Rotary, $14,000. Total Vending, $100. George and Eunice Bagaris, $100. Dr. Jennifer Terriel, $100. PM Rotary Club of Livonia, $80. And John Wojnar, food donations.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonifield, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Jenkins.
Thank you, President Burton. Tonight I'm bringing forth a very special gift for formal acceptance, as was just read in the motion, for the food pantries at Emerson Middle School and Franklin High School. 3 years ago, the Emerson Food Pantry was started by Emerson staff and the Livonia Kids and Families Organization in response to a growing need for food assistance among local families. From its humble beginnings, the pantry has grown to serve 40 Emerson families and has prompted the opening this year of the Franklin Food Pantry, which serves another 21 to 25 families. The expansion to Franklin provides for continued assistance to the former Emerson families and also offers students with special needs an opportunity to gain job skills as they help organize and operate the food pantry while giving back to the community. Just a few of the skills gained include unloading food deliveries, unpacking food boxes to stock the pantry, sorting and shelving food items, packing boxes and contacting families to notify them of their specific pickup time and day. They operate with the motto, "We benefit by benefiting others." Both of these awesome community resources are generously supported by donations from individuals and organizations in our community, as was read in the motion. We should also point out the Emerson Food Pantry recently won an online contest that entailed members of the community voting online for the program. This was a huge win that will bring $5,000 to the program for next school year. It was a fun social media blitz to make that happen. More good news for next year, the program received a $2,000 grant from the Livonia Community Foundation. So they're off to a great start for next year's funding. At this time, I'd like to invite Emerson Middle School Principal Ann Owen to the podium, as well as Mrs. Beth Santer to the podium to join us to talk about how the generous donations that were stated in the motion will be used by both food pantry programs.
Good evening. As all of us in the room are aware, no student who has what I will refer to kindly as a rumbly tummy to quote Winnie the Pooh, can come to school and learn effectively. We all know if students are worried about where their next meal is coming from, that they are not focused on their academics, and it's plain just downright a shame in a community of our wealth when you see many other nations struggling so much. Has any student or any family that has needs? As many of you see driving around our neighborhoods and especially on our freeways, the billboards now very blatantly say 1 out of 5 every child, excuse me, I got that wrong, 1 out of every 5 children experience food insecurity. And that was the basic premise for starting the Emerson Food Pantry. And I am very pleased to have Beth join me up here as our partner to continue that message on up into Franklin High School. And it's only just a win-win situation that we have involved the MOCI program and all of the skills that they are bringing to our organization. With the tremendous support of our community members, we are looking to expand down and help food all the way down to kindergarten through 6th grade next year is our ultimate goal, is to go for that. Our two main benefactors that you heard this evening, Livonia Kids and Families. Mr. Chuck Dardis is in our audience representing that organization, which is funded by many of our Livonia businesses in the business community, private citizens, many individuals. That is just the collective pot it goes into. The other one is the AM Rotary has backed us up for 3 years tremendously. And Tammy Bonifield and also Chuck Dardis are AM Rotarians, and so they are here to represent that organization. But those two groups have come together so fundamentally to fill the silent need and to make sure that our students come to school prepared to learn.
I certainly echo everything that Ann has already mentioned and just have a few other things. I want to acknowledge a few people. One is in our audience, Mary Jarvis, who is my program specialist. And when we undertook the food pantry at Franklin, as Ann alluded to, our main goal in terms of benefiting the community was also to benefit our students and increase their work skills, which is very important for our program. I could not possibly have done that without Mary. We jokingly call her my work wife, and she's actually more than that. So I thank her very much for being here. Another person I want to acknowledge is Letitia Krause, who was a brand new hire this year, and she was our teacher of the food pantry class. And she has made it come alive for our students while still benefiting and servicing the families of Livonia. So thank you very much.
Are there questions or comments from members of the board or superintendent?
I just wanted to invite Mr. Chuck Dardis to stand, please, so he can be acknowledged.
Questions or comments from other board members? Mrs. Owen, you've snuck away from the microphone, but you may be able to answer this. We have such a large crowd in attendance. If there are those who would like to make contributions on their own, what would be the best way to do that?
Any checks that are made out to Livonia Kids and Families, we deposit because that is a 501c3 for the tax benefits of anybody who would like to donate to the cause.
Okay, and Mrs. Owen was not mic'd, so if some could not hear, checks could be made out to Livonia Kids and Families, which is a 501c3. You could either get them to Emerson Middle School, or you could get it to the Board of Education office, and we would definitely make sure that it gets into the right hands. Thank you so much. We have a motion right now from by Mrs. Bonifield, supported by Mr. Centers. Seeing no other questions or comments from the board, Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mr. Center says yes. Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 3D, recognition of Emerson Middle School for Lighthouse Milestone. Mrs. Jenkins.
Thank you, President Burton. Some of the phrases I'm about to say are going to sound familiar. Thinking win-win, putting first things first, being proactive, and seeking first to understand and then to be understood. These are just some of the 7 habits that are becoming the norm among students at our growing list of Leader in Me schools in LPS. With the focus on leadership, teamwork, responsibility, organization, and continuous improvement, the 7 habits of Leader in Me are surely making a difference in the lives of both students and staff, and in our schools and outside of our schools. The 7 habits also complement the district's Community with Character initiative that focuses on positive character traits such as respect, responsibility, grit, mindfulness, integrity, reflection, confidence, and empathy. The multifaceted Leader in Me initiative began at Emerson Middle School officially in the fall of 2013 and is now on a very short list of schools that have achieved the Lighthouse milestone, a highly regarded standard set by Franklin Covey. In Michigan, Emerson is just one of 2 middle schools to achieve this milestone and just one of 285 schools around the world to do so. So what does a Leader in Me look like? What does Leader in Me look like at Emerson? First, the Student Lighthouse team drives student activities. The team plans activity nights, creates clubs, plans the annual leadership day. Lighthouse students serve as the school's Democratic Student Advisory and Leadership team as well. They brainstorm, they propose and carry out improvement initiatives by working through teacher advisors Jan Leach and Pat Wright, who deserve huge kudos for managing this task and this process with the students. The school even has data to show how much safer, happier, and more connected students feel at school since the Leader in Me became a way of life at Emerson. We just couldn't let this special Lighthouse milestone achievement pass us by without a formal recognition. So I would again like to invite Mrs. Ann Owen, principal of Emerson Middle School, and Beth Santer, who is currently serving as the interim assistant principal at Emerson, to join me at the podium. And also Trustee Crystal Frank to join us as well to read through a special resolution.
I need my green team with me.
Oh, absolutely.
All green wearing people.
All right.
Some sports teams have dream teams.
Yes.
We have a dream team.
That is very exciting.
Yes. There's one other person we need, because we have staff up here, we have students. Hey, Mr. Lack, I saw you down there somewhere. He is our PTSA president. Would you come up here and represent us?
Congratulations, everyone. I was able to come this year to your Leader in Me Celebration Day, and it was so exciting, and it was so impressive, all the work that you all have done, and the skills that you're developing has been amazing. So I really enjoyed meeting several of you and getting a tour of what you guys are doing in your building, and it is very exciting. So thank you on behalf of the entire Board of Education. Now I'll read the resolution. Whereas students, staff, and administration at Emerson Middle School embarked on the Leader in Me journey 4 years ago as an initiative to strengthen their school community and culture, and whereas the Leader in Me program instills the 7 habits of highly successful students inspired and established by Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and whereas Emerson Middle School has attained the highly regarded Lighthouse milestone standard by producing outstanding results in school and student outcomes by implementing the Leader in Me initiative with fidelity, and whereas, in doing so, the school has reinforced this leadership model through a wide variety of implementations that include, but are not limited to, incorporating leadership language into the school curriculum and instruction, staff collaboration to build a culture of leadership, establishing a meaningful student leadership roles, and creating a system for tracking school-wide classroom, academic, and personal goals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District recognize the efforts and achievement of the students, staff, and administration at Emerson Middle School for reaching the Lighthouse milestone and for being just one of 2 middle schools in the state of Michigan to achieve this success. Congratulations.
I
stand up here representing not only our 777 students we currently have in the building, but the students from the past 3 years who have gone on and done wonderful things at the high school additionally. But this is just a small representation of the tremendous willpower, dedication, creativity that not only do our students, but our staff and our parent groups bring to us every day. I am just humbled to be here as the figurehead, the representative for all of that creative power and energy. And I would very much welcome if any staff, people here who are here this evening have any questions, because I will guarantee you the students will probably even answer them better than I can.
Are there questions or comments from members of the board or the superintendent?
I just
Mrs.
wanted
Oakley.
to thank you, President Burton. I wanted to congratulate Emerson. This is a really significant recognition. Mrs. Jenkins, you did a great job of outlining that, but the work that goes into achieving lighthouse status, when Mrs. Owen shared that with us, that was a pretty exciting moment, I know, for all of you. I'd like to recognize any of the Emerson staff here. If you're an Emerson staff member, would you raise your hand? And I know your green team looks pretty familiar. I believe they were the outstanding student panel who answered our questions and guided us through at the Leadership Day a couple of weeks ago. We're so glad you could be here with us this evening and you could be honored in this way. So congratulations to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, President Burton. I too had the opportunity of being there for the Leadership Day. And, the proof is in the pudding. You can talk about awards all you want. But when you listen to these young adults, they are confident. They know what they're talking about. They have no qualms about talking to you. As Superintendent Oquist said, there was a panel discussion, and they were chomping at the bit to answer the questions that we had. They were almost stumbling over one another to get to answer. And it wasn't a it was a matter of fact, factual, and I don't think you could be prouder of what this has accomplished in these young adults. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the board? Congratulations again, and thank you for taking the initiative to be one of the driving forces of Leader in Me in the Livonia Public Schools. Terrific. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 3E, LPS Points of Pride, Cooper Upper Elementary Makerspace. Mrs. Jenkins.
Thank you, President Burton. If you've ever visited the Maker Fair at the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village, you know that the age-old concept of tinkering in the garage is alive and well. Personally, I know this to be true at my house, where our curbside recycle bin is often raided by my 12-year-old son, who swiftly rescues those cardboard paper towel tubes or those flattened boxes and plastic bottles. He, like many other inventor types, sees past the traditional function of such items and imagines the possibilities if they were put to a different use. This is the whole concept behind a really cool room located off the library at Cooper Upper Elementary, where my son happens to be a 6th grade student. It's called the Cooper Makerspace, a brightly decorated enclave of creativity, imagination, and inspiration. In fact, tonight I am wearing a product that was created by my son Evan in the Makerspace. It's a cool-looking necklace, and it's made from a brass ring with some black rubber bands and a piece of yarn. And it's very stylish. Tonight we've invited the creator of Cooper's Makerspace, Mrs. Judy Bowling, who up until recently was the media specialist at the school. We've asked Mrs. Bowling to join us tonight, along with 2 6th graders who have made this space their own, Mr. Evan Jenkins, my son, and Mr. Robbie Fitzgibbon. just to kind of set the stage real quick before I turn it over to them, I would love for you to enjoy the slideshow, which is going to magically appear on the monitors here. These are some photos from the Cooper Maker. There are the kids in action. Thank you, Fred, upstairs. That's just to kind of set the scene for you before I ask Mrs. Bowling and the kids to join us at the podium. Join me at the podium. Mrs. Bowling?
Good evening.
Good evening.
At Cooper, we had a vision a few years ago to create a space that looked and felt different than any other space that we had in our building. And I think you saw that. We wanted this space to ignite creativity. We wanted it to be bright and inspiring. We wanted kids to walk through the door and be excited to learn. We wanted to create the conditions where students could be innovative and inspired. Luckily, there just happened to be a dreary storage area that sat adjacent to the Library Media Center. It was a blank slate that begged to be transformed into our current makerspace. We started by transforming the 23-foot bulletin board into a Lego display. We then painted walls, we upcycled old furniture, we hung quotes on the walls, we sought input from students, from teachers, from parents, and from our community. What started as a quest to create a makerspace for students soon became a community project. It took us a little over a year before the room was ready for students, but it was well worth the wait. In reality, a makerspace, though, isn't a space at all. It's a mindset. It's about exploring, discovering new ideas, and creating. It's about being innovative and creating things that are new and better. It's about tinkering, inventing, building, problem solving, critical thinking, and taking risks. It's about collaborating and learning from others. It's about failing, learning from mistakes, and trying again. It's about finding your passions and sharing them with others. It's about making. Students have access to our makerspace during their recess and have had access to it through the library media program. The concept of making, innovating, and design thinking is also connected to the curriculum. All of our students love our makerspace, but two students in particular have really stepped up to taking on leadership roles, especially in my absence at Cooper. Robbie Fitzgibbon and Evan Jenkins are sixth grade students who are both incredibly talented innovators who have been instrumental in keeping our makerspace student-centered. They help maintain and organize the space, they generate new ideas, they help their fellow classmates and encourage them to take risks. They help with our after-school maker club, and they serve as student ambassadors to the maker movement. So I'd first like to introduce you to Robbie Fitzgibbon, who's going to share with you his thoughts on the makerspace.
Good evening.
Good evening. In the makerspace, I like that you can be who you are and be creative. You can turn something that might go to waste into something useful and interesting. It's like doing a passion project that you enjoy every day. For example, I'm working on making a speaker for an iPhone from a tissue box. I'm still working on it, but I'm going to figure out a way to elevate the device on a small platform inside the box so you're not just dropping your device into the box. Also, I'm working on ways to make the sound echo through the box to amplify the sound. After I finish this, I want to focus on the design and appearance, and finally I will need to give it a name. For kids who have never experienced the makerspace, I would like to say that you don't need to have a big fancy space to innovate. You can create in your own bedroom or garage. I feel very lucky to have such a unique and amazing space at Cooper.
And lastly, I'd like to introduce you to Evan Jenkins, who's also going to share his thoughts on the makerspace.
In the makerspace, I like that there's no limit to your creativity. Just a few of the items that I work with in the makerspace includes bins of scrap foam pieces, hot glue guns, cardboard, strings, and all sorts of materials. For all 12 years that I have been alive, I have never had a place to work on a project like the makerspace. I am so grateful that Cooper has a place to be creative beyond belief. I love the makerspace for many reasons, but here are a few. I, like many other students at Cooper, get to go to the makerspace at recess to be creative most of the week, which is more than enough time to begin and finish a project we want to get done. The next reason is because of the people who started and run it today. Mrs. Bowling, who is our media specialist, started a sanctuary of creativity called the Makerspace, and Mrs. Hillary, a volunteer for the library at Cooper who helps out in the Makerspace. I have worked on many projects in the Makerspace, such as a hologram projecting headset, which I use cardboard and other tools to help from the Makerspace. I am so grateful that I have a place like the Makerspace at Cooper.
And that's all we have. Thank you so much, Mrs. Bowling, who I should mention is moved on from Cooper Upper Elementary, unfortunately, onto a library coordinator position with Wayne Risa. So at least her legacy is living on, though, through the Makerspace. So thank you so much for being here tonight, and thanks, guys, for sharing your thoughts.
Are there questions or comments from members of the Board of Education or the Superintendent? Mrs. Jarvis.
How can I get a Lego wall in my bedroom?
Isn't it great? When you think about, for those of you that had an opportunity to see the space before it became the Makerspace, it would be hard to imagine what it has evolved into today. And we're just so proud of you, Robbie and Evan. Judy, thank you so much for your efforts. It was great to hear from you this evening, and thanks for the sneak peek. It would be hard to envision it if we did not have an opportunity to see some of those pictures. So thank you so much. Great job, guys.
Mrs. Bradford.
I have to say those pictures are fantastic. Can adults go to the Makerspace?
Yes, I win.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, they let you in.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna sign up for that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Definitely go.
You'll have to
Great
get
job,
it
great
with Robbie and Evan first.
Okay. I'll look it through that.
Okay. Any other comments from members of the board? Again, thank you so much and congratulations, and thank you to Mrs. Bowling and the team of volunteers that made that cool space come alive for so many kids. The next item on our agenda is item 3F, Board Member Recognition for MASB Certification and Awards. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a few words about MASB. When we're elected to be board members, we don't necessarily come in knowing what we're doing. Sometimes we like to think we do, but when we get on the board, we find out that there is a lot more to it than we ever thought. And we're lucky enough to have the Michigan Association of School Boards, which has continuing education for board members, and generally any board member around the state can take these classes. No one's required to take them. But they certainly help you to develop your role as a board member. More particularly with regard to our board, we believe it's so important that we have our continuing education that if you look at our code of ethics, we have in there that it's ethical for us to continue our education. And there are various levels. And tonight, we have Mrs. Jarvis, who has received her first level certification, and she is now a certified board member. So we appreciate that. first level is your certification as a board member. And we have our new board members, Crystal Frank and Karen Bradford, who are working diligently to get their first level. They're doing it rather quickly. Once they become certified board members, this board will be known as an honor board. And an honor board means that each and every one of your board members has reached at least that initial certification. Not that many boards in the state are honor board members, or honor boards, and we look forward to having that very, very shortly. In addition, Mr. Dan Centers, our secretary, has achieved the Award of Merit. As I said, you don't stop at your initial certification. MASB has hundreds of courses to take in just about any subject that you want. And we continually take those classes. And Mr. Centers has now achieved the Award of Merit. To show you just how far you can go, our president as well has achieved the Master Board Member, which is one of the higher levels. Congratulations, Kelly.
Thank you.
There is going to be a dinner on April 27th by MASB where our board members will officially receive their awards. And unfortunately, I won't be able to be there that night, but you have my congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the board or the superintendent?
Thank you for the commitment to your continued development.
Thank you.
Lots of time and effort on evenings and weekends.
Thank you. It has been, as Mr. Johnson said, it is our honor to serve on this Board of Education. It is a largely volunteer activity, but it's very fulfilling, especially on a night like this when we can see so many students and so many accomplishments. It is truly our honor to serve this school district. So thank you. Next item on our agenda is item 3G, district update from the superintendent. Mrs. Oaklist.
Thanks, President Burton. I have a number of highlights for you. Just recently, Livonia Public Schools was recognized by the National Association of Music Merchants Foundation as one of the nation's best communities for music education. Researchers at the Music Research Institute at the University of Kansas led the selection, and we would like to give kudos to our music teachers for the outstanding work that they do each and every day with our students. And if you would like to experience some of this talent in person, tomorrow night, the Bandorama is taking place at Stevenson at 7 p.m. if you would like to join us, and students from, band students from throughout the entire triad. So congratulations to everyone involved with our music programs throughout the district. I'd like to acknowledge our Livonia Warriors, our robotics team. Do we have any of our Warriors here tonight?
Oh, they're out there. Yeah.
Oh, please come in. Do we also have do we have any of the captains of our team? I thought we had some of our friends here tonight. The Warriors have had a remarkable season. As you may know, they are a combined team from all three of our high schools. I'd love for you two ladies to give us a little bit of a sneak preview. I know you just went to the state championship this past weekend. What an accomplishment. Led by your advisor, Iselina Carlini. Many, many volunteers. In fact, if you had the opportunity to attend last weekend at Churchill High School, Livonia hosted a tremendous competition with over 110 volunteers helping to make that happen. You are an amazing group. I'd love for you to share some of the highlights and the good news coming up for your team.
Well, so we've had an amazing season, as you said, and so we have won a lot of things. So this is what we have gotten this season.
Go ahead,
this
tell
is
us
a
about
first
it.
for us. So we have gotten first in pit safety at Centerline, winner of the Centerline competition, Chairman's Award winner at Centerline, which is the biggest award that they give. First Safety Hat Award at Livonia, finalist of the Livonia competition, first Excellence in Engineering Award, State Championship qualifying team, first in pit safety at State Championship, Best Safety Culture Honorable Mention announcement, semifinalist at State Championship, first UL Safety Industrial Safety Award at State Championship, and World Championship qualifying team.
So at the end of all of the district qualifiers and the state championship, we are currently seeded 12th out of 480 teams in the state.
Very good.
So we will travel to St. Louis on April 29th to 26th to 29th to compete in the World Championship as front-running team representing Livonia Public Schools, the state of Michigan, and even the United States, because it is the World Championship. And then we can just end with first robotics in Livonia Public Schools is all about positioning students for success on the competition field and in life.
Thank you. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Yes. This has been a season like no other. Congratulations on all of your hard work.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. We have two of our Livonia Career Technical Center students who recently received honors in a computer game design contest. I bet they would have liked a makerspace when they were in elementary school. Seniors Denise Niemtu, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and Carson Jonick won second place at U of M Dearborn with their game Bubbler, and they each received a $1,500 scholarship. Wow. So congratulations to them. As you may know, Easter Seals of Michigan, they really are at the forefront of helping children and adults with disabilities. They've been around for over 100 years. The Easter Seals of Michigan has really evolved into an organization that also works in the community with behavioral health programs and services, providing year-round recreation for children with developmental disabilities. We are so proud that one of our students at Frost Middle School, Alex Blout, has been named the Student Ambassador for Easter Seals for 2017. Wow. Congratulations to Alex. So I've not heard of this before, but Claire Walker from Franklin shared this with us and shared that we have two Livonia High School students who are representing not only their team, the Harmony Theater Company, but also the United States at Nations Cup 2017 this week at Yost Arena. They participate in theater on ice, if you can only imagine. It combines dance with figure skating set to a musical score. Catherine McGowan is a sophomore at Churchill. Rachel Teets is a sophomore at Stevenson. Both are on the senior team and will be competing this week with the Harmony Theater Company. Their team is the reigning national champion. They won silver in the 2015 Nations Cup in France, and we wish them great luck this week. Do I hear some interest over there, Mr. Francis? Is he? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's in. I thought we might have a couple interested in that. We had a number of great activities taking place right before spring break. We haven't had a formal board meeting since then, so I wanted to acknowledge a couple things. The Friday prior to that, we had the last of the three combined middle school activity nights. I just wanted to give kudos to all of our staff and our parent volunteers who helped to coordinate these. I had the pleasure of attending the one at Emerson and at Holmes. I have to tell you, they are remarkable, well-attended, beyond well-organized, and I think enjoyed by every single student there. If you are a middle school staff member, would you please raise your hand and be acknowledged? Really, kudos to our staff for trying something new this year. Very, very, very successful. If you had the opportunity, we also had some great performances by our high schoolers, both at Stevenson with their final performance in the old auditorium of Annie, and at Franklin with the Franklin Players performing Beauty and the Beast. Again, if you have not had an opportunity to take advantage of either one of our music concerts, the Fine Arts Festival, one of our theater programs, I think you would be amazed. It is hard to believe that you are watching high school students in action. So kudos to all of those involved. It means many late nights, lots of organization, so thank you for that. We had over 450 students participate in the String Fling. The String Fling, similar to Bandorama, but with our orchestra students. We had students from across the district in grades 6 through 12 performing together at Stevenson a couple of weeks ago. They all worked together to close out the night with a wonderful piece, and just, again, so emblematic of the work that our music teachers do with our students, starting at the 5th and 6th grade level, onto the middle school and onto the high school. It was really pretty cool to see the progression of where students can go, and I think very impressive for our students to see that and to see where they can end up if they stick with it. And then finally, this was awesome. Right before spring break, a number of us had the opportunity to participate in an Iron Chef competition at the Patriot Inn. Yeah, that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? The students did a remarkable job. The culinary arts students who are who work at Franklin High School but can be from any of our 3 high schools as one of our Livonia Career Technical Program opportunities, prepared meals, and we went through very similar to the Iron Chef with a little less of the drama. Really, the presentation of the food was outstanding, but the taste was excellent. We were so excited to be invited to participate. Very, very proud of our students. As you can see, we have a wide variety of opportunities for our students across the district. That's provided both in partnership with the support of our board, our administration, and our hardworking staff. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Oquist.
You're welcome.
As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, at this point we are going to take about a 5 to 10 minute break for the purpose of congratulating our honorees of the evening. Please feel free to do so, and then we will reconvene. We are now at recess. best you can wherever you'd like to be. Welcome to the continuation of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education meeting of April 17th, 2017. We are now at item 3H in our meeting, written communications. Do any board members have any written communications that they would like to share with the board? Seeing none, we are on to item 3I, audience communications. Audience communications is designed as a time for the board to listen to members of our community, whether they be staff, parents, community members. It is designed specifically as a time for us to listen. It is not designed as a question and answer type session that would come if items wind up on an agenda at a later date. But we are here to hear concerns or comments from members of our community. Those who wish to participate in audience communications are asked to honor our 3-minute time limit. The purpose of a 3-minute time limit is so that everybody has a fair opportunity to be heard and that there's an ample amount of time for everyone to be heard. Let's see here. Mr. Johnson has volunteered many years ago now, it seems like, a few years ago, to be our timekeeper. If you do hear a beep, you can know that is your 3-minute time limit. If you could wrap up your comments at that time, we would appreciate it. We have just found that that's a little bit more polite way rather than having to interrupt a speaker. So if you are speaking and you hear that little beep, then you'll know that you hit that 3-minute time limit. Also, I do take this opportunity to let folks know what the role of the Board of Education is as opposed to the role of our administration, because a lot of folks don't know the difference. The role of the board is primarily threefold, and that is first to hire and evaluate our superintendent. Secondly, it is to set policy for the district. And third, it is to set the long-term or strategic goals of the district. That is a fairly narrow scope. Those are important, wide-reaching items, but they are fairly small in number. Most other items are what we consider day-to-day operations of the district, and those are handled by our superintendent, Mrs. Oquist, and the entire staff of nearly 2,000 people that work for Livonia Public Schools. Therefore, if your item of concern has to address the 3 items that are the responsibility of the Board of Education, and you've requested a response back, you could expect that response to come from the board. If your item of concern is more of a day-to-day operations issue, which many of them are, and you've requested a response, you can expect that response to come from either Mrs. Oquist or our administrative team. Just try to get a little bit of understanding here so folks understand what they can expect as they're participating this evening. First, this evening we have Dana Winnery. Mr. Winnery.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, President Burton and board members and Superintendent Oquist. At the April 10, 2017 Board Committee meeting, I addressed several issues during the public comment section. In my statements, I misstated that the Livonia Education Association had not asked for nor offered any bargaining dates. In the past week, I've been reminded that the LEA did request bargaining dates in an email dated March 28th, several days before spring break. I want to acknowledge that. And in response to that email, I contacted the LEA chief spokesperson during spring break by text message to invite a phone call to discuss bargaining dates. The LEA chief spokesperson called immediately upon return from spring break, and we've continued to communicate to identify and set dates. I personally apologize for any misunderstanding that my misstatement may have caused, and I want to convey on my own behalf and on behalf of the district that we look forward to a productive and fruitful bargaining process and to continuing the cooperative relationship that we have long enjoyed with the LEA. Thanks, President Burton, for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Ryan Tracy. Mr. Tracy. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Lieutenant Oquist, members of the board, President Burton. This definitely doesn't get any easier. I know I was up here last year addressing you over at the Livonia Career Center. It is nice to have a lot of people that are here to kind of support me. You think talking in front of kids would make it very easy for you, but when you have a group this large, a couple hundred members who are behind you, makes it a little bit easier for me. I was here last week, and it was a much smaller meeting. And there's a couple things that a few of us were a little bit upset about. Some things that we heard that were not really sitting well with us after the meeting last Monday. So we kind of had an impromptu LEA union meeting on Wednesday before our long break, and we showed the video of the meetings. Particularly, we showed when our president, Priscilla David, spoke to right about the end that Mr. Winnery did, about 10 minutes, 21 seconds or so. And a lot of our staff had the same reactions that we did from some of the things that came out of, that came from Mr. Winnery. But the biggest reaction actually came from something that you said, Ms. Burton. And it was something that we really wanted to make sure that, as English teachers, as history teachers, we always talk about literacy and make sure you're using the right words, using the right diction. And as soon as Mr. Winnery stepped up to the mic, he was talking about clarifying things. I believe it's about 12:57, give or take a second or two, on the YouTube video from the last meeting. And he said, I'll be providing some corrections or some factual information. You said, factual corrections. And that was something that really stuck in the craw of many of us, because our Ms. David just had talked and spoke for over 900 of us, and we feel that she was very, very factual, and I believe Mr. Winnery just addressed that fact. So I just wanted to make sure that, the board is here, like we say, to give us these meetings, get the idea out in the public of who we are and what we are about. I just wanted to make sure that we addressed, that I addressed, that it was something that very stuck out to us, and we were a little bit worried that without even saying anything, you took his word at fact and basically took the words from 900 LEA members as a fallacy. So I just wanted to make sure that, going forward, we hope that the diction and clarification is a little bit better going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Doug Coates. Mr. Coates. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak this evening.
You're very welcome.
I wanted to congratulate first the board members on your certification. As teachers, we live the life of certification and being concerned on that.
Yes, you do.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to have a couple comments as well. As you know, bargaining a new contract is an important process to the board and the district administration and the LEA members. Integrity and trust are an essential part of the process, and I hope that tonight we are reestablishing that integrity and trust that seems to have some tension over the last couple of weeks. It is true that things get heated during the bargaining process as each side advocates for its positions, and I know that sometimes words are said in the heat of things that that you have to kind of repair, and I hope this is one of those opportunities. I know that the school board values truth. I know that the district administration values truth. I know that Mr. Winery expects truth as well. And based on my experience in the school district and in my role as a union officer, I know that district's teachers are expected to be truthful as well. And I ask the board to consider what would be the consequences for a teacher who did not speak words of truth. I think it's important to note that although we were talking that kind of took a bargaining point of view last week, our communication concern was the chief reason that Ms. David was speaking last week. Many of the teachers in this room have experienced unresponsiveness to emails and phone calls that are made to HR, and I hope that this can be addressed. Many administrators and principals have said to their staffs that they should be getting back to parents within a reasonable amount of time, which is often considered to be 24 hours. And I would hope that this board would expect that administration and human resources would follow that same expectation. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Priscilla David. Our next speaker is Priscilla David. Good evening.
Good evening. Last Monday, I addressed this board to explain the difficulty we have experienced in our communication with LPS. Upon my completion, you allowed Mr. Winery to speak to this issue, discrediting my statements. You have before you hard copies of letters and emails, which I would like you to review. First, the letter I referenced dated February 16th, acknowledging our intent and readiness to begin bargaining. Please note the phrase formal notification of the association's intent to commence bargaining. Our logical expectation would be for the recipient to address the topic in return. This expectation was bolstered by Mr. Winery's long career as an HR director. The second paper is a copy of the email sent by our MEA director on March 28th. Attached to this was a scanned copy of the original February 16th letter. I refer you to the line, "As of yet, we have not heard from the district in regards to meeting or setting possible bargaining dates." Lest his intent not be clear, Mr. Longuski also requested that Mr. Winery contact our chief negotiator, Doug Coates, to schedule a meeting. Despite what you see, and contrary to the bargaining agreement approved by this board, signed by our association team members, and Mr. Winery, your representative, March 15th has come and gone. In other words, the long-standing contracted agreement between Livonia Public Schools and the Livonia Education Association has now been violated. Mr. Winery mentioned the substantial amount of information requested from HR prior to bargaining. Please refer to the October request sent by our previous MEA director. Insurance information was requested, but to this date has never been received. I could go on, but I choose to stop here. Last week, a concerted effort was made to discredit the information I presented to you on behalf of the LEA bargaining team and our association. With the approval of this board, Mr. Winery went so far as to state that during my 3.4 minutes, the information I gave was very misleading and, frankly, untrue. As the president of the Livonia Education Association, I stand before you to state that absolutely nothing I said last week was either misleading or untrue. I was elected to this position by my colleagues to represent their best interests and voice their concerns. I do not take this responsibility lightly. Anyone who has known me for any length of time will acknowledge that although I have my faults, lack of integrity is not one of them. In discrediting me, you sent a strong statement of mistrust to district teachers who are responsible for the academic development of our LPS students. Now, where do we go from here? As a whole, district employees look forward to a future that upholds honest, timely communication as the standard. We hope to see the same respectful, positive, and supportive interactions which we are called upon to display to our students each and every day. I appreciate the time and feedback given to this issue by our superintendent today. We will move forward from here and strive to cooperate with your efforts toward an improvement in communication. Open and honest dialogue will serve the district well as we work toward academic gains for our students at every level. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker. Our next speaker will be Eric Languski. Eric. Our next speaker will be Eric Languski. Eric.
Good evening, President Burton.
Good evening.
Members of the board, thank you for having me here. My name is Eric Longuski, 5030 White Pine Drive, China, Michigan. I'm a Michigan Education Association UniServe Director, the one that was mentioned last week. I was hired by the 4 MEA groups. I think they're represented, all 4 of them are here today, of the Livonia Public Schools. I want to assure you that I take coming before the board very seriously. I did not expect to speak today, but at the board meeting on April 10th, Mr. Winery made statements that were more than, say, a misstatement. Mr. Winery stated the following.
And by the way, I'd add to that, that in my ongoing communication with the leadership of the LEA, and in particular the UniServe director, we have not once in all this time been asked for bargaining dates. Now that includes a number of face-to-face and telephone conversations, never a question about bargaining dates. So again, to suggest that the district is dragging our feet is just not fair or accurate.
And so, I will clearly show that this misstatement is more than a misstatement. On February 16th, I personally gave Mr. Winery the letter that you have before you in yellow. Priscilla David already discussed the contents, so I will not belabor the point. There was no reply to the contract provision included in that letter. While financial information was eventually provided by April 4th, that is nothing to satisfy the request to begin bargaining. Article 30, Section A in the collective bargaining agreement is not typical, nor is that letter a mere formality. It's the only letter I've written while I've been here. This contract is a legally binding agreement between you, the board, and the teachers of the Livonia Public Schools. As you are very well aware, every part of a collective bargaining agreement is carefully negotiated and has great importance. We are committed to holding up our end of the agreement. It is our word, okay, and our word is good. As Priscilla mentioned, the bargaining team did not receive a reply by March 15th in violation of this contract. The bargaining team waited 13 more days before they directed me to contact Mr. Winery again on March 28th. This communication is provided in the red document that Priscilla David mentioned earlier. I will read part of this because this does defend my actions. Attached, you will find a scan of the letter that I presented to you on February 16, 2017. The LEA requested that the district reply and that we start to bargain in good faith to reach a successor agreement. As of yet, we have not heard from the district in regards to meeting or setting possible bargaining dates. We look forward to moving forward with this process. Please contact Doug Coates if you would like to schedule a meeting. Again, that was March 28th. Surprisingly to all of us, we did not receive a prompt reply to this email to begin bargaining. Mr. Winery did not contact Doug Coates until April 7th, the Friday of spring break, a full 10 days after my second request to begin bargaining. Doug contacted Mr. Winery when the school resumed on Monday, April 10th. As of Thursday, April 13th, when I left the office, we still had not heard from Mr. Winery about the district's commitment to begin bargaining despite our request in the contractually binding language that compels the district to do so. I will agree with Mr. Winery on one thing. There have been a number of opportunities to reply for these requests, in person, by email, or by phone. The statement.
If you could wrap up your comments because you hit over the 3-minute limit, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I will do that. I apologize.
Not once in all this time been asked for bargaining dates. Now, that includes a number of face-to-face and telephone conversations, never a question about bargaining dates. So again, to suggest that the district is dragging our feet is just not fair or accurate.
And so, I play that again, but I do hold out hope. I hope the district is willing to take the necessary actions to correct the situation and allow both sides to move forward. I think we can do that. Everybody can move beyond things like this. But I could not let that comment, those statements go unquestioned and unaddressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Debbie McDermott. Mrs. McDermott, good evening.
Good evening. I'm a lifelong resident of Livonia and a graduate of Churchill High School. I'm a past City of Livonia Planning Commissioner, and I volunteered in the community for the past 25 years with my therapy dogs, including at Livonia Public Schools. On November 2016, Mr. McDonald, the super principal that was at Churchill High School, informed me that Central Administration informed him that LPS doesn't allow therapy dogs. I stated at the time, someone must be confused or misinformed. I volunteered with 2 certified therapy dogs, Roxy and Cooper, for the past 9.5 years in 10 of the schools with much success. We're not a secret. We've been in the news 4 times. In May 2015, Stacy Jenkins wrote the article for The Observer for Cooper's 100th school visit. Representative Laura Cox even sent a letter to thank us for our service. Originally, I was told by Mr. McDonald that he would look into the situation and that possibly they just needed to reword the policy. I then became sick for 2 months and couldn't follow up. I assumed that someone was working on it, and then I understand that Mr. McDonald was promoted. On February 21st of 2017, I sent a letter and a packet with supporting information to Mrs. O'Quist. Mrs. Moore, a former principal, she's retired, sent an email as well. A copy of this packet was sent to all of you tonight in your email, and I sent another one to you, Mrs. O'Quist, because I understand that things need to be delegated, and the original packet may have never reached your desk. I do ask that everyone take a few minutes to review it, because I took much time to select photo examples of how Roxy and Cooper services have been utilized in the schools. I take great pride in the fact that I didn't just show up to stand around. We actually participate. Also important to note is that the students nor the teachers were informed that someone from Central Administration removed Cooper from his volunteer services. I went about my business in the city for the past several months, and I had teachers, students, and parents begging me to return Cooper to the schools, but I couldn't. 2 of the comments that were made, which this is a bit emotional, was, quote, "Somebody needs to make this right." So I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request on March 29th for the LPS therapy dog policy. I've yet to receive a response. If there isn't a policy, then why was Cooper removed? What is the problem? The reason why I'm standing here tonight is because one student said to me, quote, "Nobody cares." Well, here stands somebody who does care. I care because in 9.5 years, thousands of students have benefited from my therapy dogs. I could list examples for hours. There are a few in your packets. Please make sure you take a look at those. Maybe it's easier for me to stand here tonight because I'm not an employee. I get it. Really, I do. I'm just a volunteer who served the school district for 9.5 years. So while it may not be the most important thing in the school district, I do understand that too. And we understand that everyone is busy. We've been patient for 5 months. We, which includes the students, respectfully request that someone here does the right thing and returns Cooper to his place at school before the end of the school year. We've been nothing but a benefit to the district, the students, and the teachers, and we hope this is all just a huge mistake. We really hope this isn't a couple of staff members' personal agenda that removed Cooper from his program and from the students. If that's true, that's very sad. It's sad because there's been 5 months with no reading practice to students. They really do love it. He's sorry. They really do love it because he's a non-judgmental listening ear. There's been 5 months without coursework support for the center program. Again, please look at your packet photos. The teachers at both the elementary and the secondary levels have utilized our volunteer program in unique learning modules. They are to be commended. There's also been 5 months without stress relief, which has been proven to promote better retention for material learned. It's also in your packet. I'm a corporate person in my background, and I know I'm over my time. I'll just take a few seconds to finish. I checked your vision. Under climate and environment, it says, the district values honest, open, and two-way communication among all stakeholders, families, students, staff, and community. It says you invite parents and community members to be active partners. That's why I'm here. I care. It also has under engaged learners that the students experience, the district expects students to experience joy in learning, flourish in a learning environment where creativity and imagination abound, and have their unique learning needs met. What better way to do that than with a therapy dog program? All students don't learn the same way. We all know that. So, I thank you for your time, and I trust that I will hear from the someone who is going to make it right for the students. To the LPS students out there, if any of them watch the meetings, that expected someone to care, I'm here, and the little dog Cooper still supports and loves all of you.
The next item on our agenda is item 3J, which is response to prior audience communications, of which we have a few. Mrs. O'Brien.
Good evening.
Some items, excuse me, Mrs. O'Brien, some items that were addressed tonight are going to have a response. If any of you care to hear the response, I'm just giving you a heads up that that will be coming shortly.
Good evening, President Burton, board members, Superintendent O'Quist. I just wanted to respond to a concern that was raised about our high school ELA textbooks. I wanted to acknowledge that we do have several textbooks that are in need of replacement, including high school ELA. And as you know, our budgets were cut for several years and that we are beginning to address this. There is a committee, a high school committee currently working in the midst of aligning their curriculum, revising their common assessments, and creating units of study. At this point in the process, there's no textbook recommendation for this group, but as they continue the process of alignment, we are opening to piloting a book to support the work that they're doing. We appreciate all the work that the teachers are doing, and we'll share with you when we have completed this process. Thank you.
We've had a number of audience communications over the past few weeks, as has been mentioned earlier. One addressed packing concerns. I'd like to recognize that there has been a tremendous amount of work that has been done on the part of the staff, the parents, the administration, the transition teams that are addressing the dozens, literally, of tasks that need to be done in the closure and moving of students from one building to another. lot of those tasks are very time sensitive, and unfortunately not every item can be done first. Please be assured that the packing concerns are on the list of items that are being addressed. It's just that they have had to have been taken in time-sensitive order. One of the first things that was done was to make sure that the students and the families knew what buildings that they were going to be attending school in the fall. And next high priority is making sure our staff knows what buildings they will be teaching in the fall. That took a great deal of time and took the priority at the time that the packing concerns were being brought to our attention. Please understand that the packing concerns are on the list of items that are being addressed. We just had to make sure that things are getting done as quickly as they can and in the most time-sensitive manner as possible. Other items on this list include, but are certainly not even close to limited to, as we said, student placement, teacher placement, building and parking lot construction needs, any summer construction needs, and other configurations that are necessary for the opening of school in the fall. So again, the packing concern is being done. We just need to recognize the tremendous amount of work that's being done on everyone's shoulders to make sure that we have a smooth start to school in the fall. There was also an implication that the board members would not be packing because many of us have full-time jobs and family lives and so forth. I want to make sure that the folks understand the board is an almost 100% volunteer group. We are paid for 3 Monday night meetings a month, and everything else that we do on behalf of the district is free of charge. That is perfectly fine with us. We joyfully do that job. We signed up for it. We joyfully serve the district. We're not looking to get paid for it. We're not looking for a pat on the back for it. But we just don't want folks under the misguided impression that we only will do items if we are paid to do so. As a matter of fact, several of the members of this board have packed an awful lot of boxes, and wouldn't be surprised to see us doing it again. We continue to volunteer. Again, we do so happily because we are passionate about this school district. We invite you to, or we ask you rather, to let us know when your district activities are going on, because when you see us around in the district, it's because someone let us know that their activities were happening, and this Board of Education does their very best to support the work of this school district, not only in this boardroom, but out in the district. So again, if you have activities that you'd like us to attend or to be aware of, please absolutely let us know. We'd be happy to do our best to be there. A number of items have been brought forth tonight and over the last few weeks, and I would just like to remind everybody, including myself, everyone present tonight, everyone listening in future weeks perhaps to this broadcast, that we have 14,000 plus students in our district. We have 2,000 staff that we value greatly. All of those 14,000 students have two parents, at least had at some point two parents. We have a volunteer Board of Education. We have an awful lot of folks who are working very, very hard, all toward the same end. I encourage all of us to recognize the efforts of one another, to appreciate the efforts of one another. We certainly do our best as members of the Board of Education to do that with everybody, and with a lot of issues going on right now, I just think it behooves us all to recognize that we're all working toward the same end, which is educating 14,000 plus students this year alone to become successful, productive adults in our community. Thank you. I also was asked tonight or brought to my attention tonight that I used the word factual correction. I would like to make clear what my intention was in using those words. It is very deliberate that the audience communication portion of a Board of Education meeting, and this is generally a statewide practice, and it certainly is here, that it not be a question and answer session or a debate or a back and forth conversation. Part of the reason for that is because the Board of Education members may or may not have any information at all, or a whole lot, or somewhere in between, about what the speaker is talking about that evening. What is designed to do, very definitely, is to have the board listen. The very rare times when a board member or another member of our administration will interject in that time period is as I'm trying to run our meeting, is only so that we can make a factual correction as opposed to getting into a question and answer session or getting into a debate. Part of the reason of that is that if we began doing that with some individuals, it may not be fair to do that with some and not with others. We do our very, very best to be fair with everybody across the board. We are certainly not perfect human beings, but we try to do our best to serve our school district. And that is one way that we can do our best to try to be fair to everyone, is to listen to everyone, to give everyone the same amount of time to speak, and then make sure that we get back with folks in the most meaningful way that is possible for us to do. We don't hit perfection 100% of the time, but we try darn hard. I apologize if my words factual correction was offensive. It was certainly not meant to be so. It was not meant to imply that previous words that had been spoken were unfactual. That was not my intent at all. My intent was simply to clarify that we would not be engaging in a question and answer session. And even when it was asked near the end of that period, are there any questions from the board? I stopped at that point and said we will not be entertaining questions right now. We are simply hearing information, and that is the purpose of that portion of the meeting. Again, you have my sincere apology if the words factual correction were offensive. They were certainly not intended to be so. It was just a matter of clarification between, are we going to hear some information, or are we going to be asked to engage in a dialogue, which we just were not able to do at that point of a meeting. So you have my apology if that was offensive. It was not my intention. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 4, consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the following consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent. 5A, minutes of the regular meeting of March 20th, 2017. 6A, bills for payment April 18th, 2017. 7A, approval of cooperative agreements for Livonia Career Technical Center. 7B, approval of cooperative agreements for Livonia Transition Program.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, and that is supported by Mrs. Bradford. Mrs. Oakley, would you like to address this item for the board? I'm sorry, consent agenda, I apologize. Consent agenda items are, by their very nature, items that are routine or repetitive in nature, and there has been previous agreement by the members of the Board of Education to vote on these items as a whole. Seeing that, are there any questions or comments on any items on the consent agenda by the superintendent or members of the board? Thank you. We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. Bradford. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burton.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is item 6, business matters. 6B is the approval of Holmes Middle School Water Main Project Sinking Fund. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the recommendation from the owner's representative, Plant Moran Cressa, to approve the water main replacement at Holmes Middle School in the amount of $324,815 plus $40,000 in contingency, for a total of $364,815, and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute final contract with the recommended contractor, Macomb Pipeline and Utilities, Sterling Heights, Michigan.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Francis, would you like to address this for the board?
Thank you, President Burton.
Thank you.
The water main at Holmes has been a concern, the shape that it's in, the age that it's in, so we have been had that on our radar for quite some time here to use sinking fund dollars to repair that. So we went out for bid. At this time, Macomb Pipeline Utilities was the low responsible bidder, and The plan is to work on that over the summer, and then, as you know, there'll be a paving project at Holmes Middle School. We will certainly, as we've discussed at the Committee of the Whole, have this timed so that the water main project would occur first and then the paving project. So we do suggest or recommend this project out of the necessity. And Mr. Scott Smith, did you have anything you wanted to add? Mr. Scott Smith from Owner's Rep, Plant Moran Cressa is here with us this evening in case there's any specific questions from the board.
No, I would just add to that this project is really predicated to precede the paving work. It's the logical progression of work. So it's a little bit time sensitive. We're hopeful that we can address any questions tonight and hopefully move forward with Macomb Pipeline and Utilities.
Are there questions or comments from the board? Mr. Centers.
Phil, typically when water mains are replaced, you see city workers or county workers out there doing that. Why is this a project for Livonia Public Schools in this case?
It's our water main. Yeah. It's within our property, and it's on there. Are different items from water mains to electric poles and whatnot that Livonia Public Schools is actually responsible for. This is one of those.
So this service is our building at Holmes, and we're responsible solely for it.
Correct.
Thanks.
Mrs. Oquist.
As Mr. Francis mentioned, I don't know if you recall, our folks maybe who are new to the board may not, but we've had some significant issues over the past couple of years. We had some room flooding and some significant backup. So this water main issue has been on the list of to-do for a couple of years, and certainly with our sinking fund dollars, we would recommend that. But we have had some significant issues where we've had the issues of flooding in classrooms and needing to replace. So although it's an expensive project, certainly in the long term worthwhile for us.
Just to piggyback on that, it was one of the first things I heard Mr. Wayne Roberts bring up when I took the position was water main at Holmes. So it has been something that's on the radar and in the plan.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Burton. Mr. Smith, what's the time frame for getting this done, and is it going to impede at all any of the school, any of our classes?
We don't believe so. The plan for the water main would actually be to start as soon as school gets out the following Monday, have the crews mobilized, get that work done by the middle of July, and then we previously awarded all the paving projects, of which Holmes was one. We would simply start those other projects earlier on in the summer and then transition over to Holmes to complete the asphalt work there. So the goal would be be done by about 18th or so of August, all things go well.
Are there any other comments or questions from the board? As you mentioned, it was a while ago now, but just as a reminder, as you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, this is a voting meeting, which means this item has, like many others that are going to be coming here shortly, have been discussed at least 2 prior meetings. It is not that the board doesn't have questions, it's just that we have discussed this in some great detail at this point, which is why you may see fewer questions for the items from here going forward than you may have expected. But please know we have discussed this at least 2 other sessions prior to tonight. Any other final questions or comments? We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Mr. Centers says yes. Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield?
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford?
Yes.
Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burden?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Mr. Smith. Next item on the agenda is item 6C, approval of painter for Churchill High School renovations 2013 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bradford.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the recommendation from the owner's representative, Plant Moran Cressa, to approve the painting at Churchill High School in the amount of $296,823, and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute final contract with the recommended contractor, Seven Brothers Painting Incorporated, Shelby Township, Michigan.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Francis.
Thank you. The paint project that we're bringing to the recommendation to the board this evening was a piece, if you recall, when we discussed the Churchill renovation from the 2013 bond last month and brought that to the board, and the board had voted on. It was the one piece that we had pulled out from the full list of bids and items for construction. The reason being we were still where we had put out for bid, but we were still working on a paint solution. As you know, that we've had some concerns with adhesion at some of our buildings, whether it be classroom, whether it be the hallway, whether it be just the stripe that's down the hallway, et cetera. So we wanted to do a little more due diligence. We put several products on the wall in Churchill High School. We wanted to have an adhesion test. We've been working with Sherwin-Williams, et cetera. So I just wanted to point that piece out, remind the board, remind the folks at home that this is something that we were sort of concentrating on a little bit more and doing a little bit more due diligence. But now at this time, we have who was our original low bidder, Seven Brothers, who is a very reputable firm, and we've worked with before. We recommend Seven Brothers for the paint project at Churchill High School. We did, over the spring break period, have a team go in with civil engineers, the architect, and our own folks check the test results, and Sherwin-Williams working with us as well on Churchill. So we're confident, we're ready to move forward with the board on this one.
That's good, thank you. Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burden.
Yes, motion passes, thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 6D, approval of construction manager for Churchill High School renovations 2013 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Bonnefield.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the recommendation from the owner's representative, Plant Moran Cressa, to appoint George W. Auk Company as construction manager for Churchill High School in the amount of $2,337,616, which includes the construction and staffing fees of which includes the construction and staffing fees of $810,940, construction manager fees of $265,950, and contingency fees of $1,260,726, and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute final contract with the recommended contractor.
Support.
Kind of a chorus of support there. I believe I heard Mrs. Bradford's voice in there. We have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Bradford. Mr. Francis.
Thank you. The George W. Auk Company is the recommended contractor for the Phase 4 Churchill bond. We've got a long-standing relationship with Auk, along with, and worked with other construction managing companies as well. But we recommend continuation for the specific Churchill High School is the only one that's in this recommendation at this time. It's for the Phase 4 Churchill High School construction manager. That is our recommendation.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or board members? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Bradford. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonnefield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burden.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 6E, approval of construction manager for summer and fall projects 2013 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Frank.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the recommendation from the owner's representative, Plant Moran Cressa, to appoint George W. Auk Company as construction manager for Churchill High School.
No.
Or jump.
Am I jumping? Thanks. Okay. Start over?
Go ahead. I mean, yes, start over. Yeah.
Okay. Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the recommendation from the owner's representative, Plant Moran Cressa, to appoint George W. Ott Company as construction manager for summer and fall projects in the amount of $73,169 for the summer project staffing and reimbursable costs at Garfield Elementary, Randolph Elementary, Frost Middle School, Cooper Upper Elementary, and Buchanan Elementary Schools. Fall project staffing and reimbursement costs at Garfield Elementary in the amount of $106,727, plus construction manager fees for both projects in the amount of $58,500, for a total amount of $238,396, and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute final contract with the recommended contractor.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mr. Francis.
Thank you, President Burton. Once again, we're discussing construction manager, and once again, we're recommending OC. This is specifically for the construction management for the summer programs, or the summer renovations, non-Churchill High School. And as we've discussed in the past, there are a handful at the buildings listed of items that we're going to be doing, whether it be fixing up some casework at Foster Cooper, or doing a little work over at Buchanan to get ready for the additional students, et cetera. And then the fall project would also be the work being done to get the Garfield building ready for the Western Wayne Skill Center programs to move over to Garfield, in calendar 2018. So this was sort of stripped away and individualized because it's a unique portion. We did take bids from 3 companies that we have used in the past as construction manager. We're recommending OC. They have some efficiencies based upon the fact that they are already in the district working on both Stevenson and Churchill over the summer. They can send workers over to the other schools, do those types of items and supervise, et cetera. So our recommendation for the summer fall projects 2017 is again the George OC Company.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the superintendent or the members of the board? No. Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burton.
Yes. Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 6F, approval of bid results for fire sprinkler system at Grant Elementary, 2013 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Johnson.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the recommendation from the owner's representative, Plant Moran Cressa, to approve the installation of the fire sprinkler system at Grant Elementary in the amount of $28,580, plus a contingency amount of $5,716, for a total of $34,296, and authorize the superintendent or her designee to negotiate and execute the final contract with the recommended contractor, Professional Sprinklers, Wixom, Michigan.
Support.
I'm sorry, was that Mrs. Jarvis? Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Francis.
Still me, okay.
It's still you.
Speaking of the summer projects, non-Churchill, this is one of them mentioned. Grant Elementary, we're doing a fire suppression, i.e. sprinkler system at Grant Elementary. A low bidder, we have the professional sprinkler out of Wixom, Michigan, which coincidentally or not coincidentally is also a low bidder for the sprinkler system at Churchill High School that they're going to work on. So we recommend professional sprinkler for the Grant Elementary fire suppression job.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions by the superintendent or the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burton.
Yes. Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 6G, approval to purchase point of sale or POS system for Food Services Department. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the purchase of the point of sale or POS system from Horizon Software International, Duluth, Georgia, for an annual amount of $19,685 for the Solana software and online application, plus an initial training amount of $3,795 and a one-time hardware cost of $14,634.75 for a total of $38,114.75.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mr. Francis, you're
I
again.
am very excited and pleased to present with you this, this recommendation. I would like to take a moment to clear up in your packet, you have the quote. If you just go down the right line, it doesn't add up to what is in the cap sheet. It's because the quote that they gave us, they simply put the cost of one of the Horizon USB scan pads with 3-year warranty on there. So we then put an asterisk at the bottom for the 39 that we need, because we need to put these throughout the buildings. So if you just add them up, you're going to be off a little bit, because essentially what you would do is you would add 40. It was pointed out to me that the smart move would have been just to asterisk 38 of them, and then it all would have added up. But I didn't do that. So in my mind, it sounded good at the time to put the 39 at the bottom. But that's where the math is coming from. You have the software plus the training, then plus the $14,634.75 for the 39 items. That is the total that you see in your cap sheet. Again, just want to clarify, because I know that it was a little bit of confusion as it came out. And again, we recommend, this system was bid out by Wayne County RESA for all of the districts within Wayne RESA as a software system that would not only be applicable and usable in tandem with MyStar and the information that RESA houses in MyStar, but also was the low responsible bidder for that RFP at the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there questions or comments from board members or superintendent on this item? Mrs. Frank?
Just, if you could, Phil, just tell us exactly what the point of sale is, what it, in a high level, not detailed, but just for the viewing public.
Sure,
or
sure.
whoever, just what exactly this hardware is for and what it will do.
Certainly.
High level.
It's really mostly software that we're contracting to get that would replace what we currently do now. And anyone who's gone through a cafeteria line, gone to a restaurant, et cetera, there's that POS system, that point of sale, that the orders go in. If it's a restaurant, if you ever waited tables, as I did for many years, you punch in all of the dishes and drinks ordered, et cetera, and it goes to the kitchen. Well, this looks a little different because we're running through the cafeteria, but our menus are in there. The money that parents put on for their children, for their student, is logged in there. This system we're excited about. It's user-friendly, not only for our folks in the food service department and working in the kitchens, but also for families. There's an app for your handheld device that you can download for free and track items that your child has eaten. If you get, you can set up to give you an alert if you get a low balance. You can still bring in money, or you can go through the app. You can do it online. It's pretty exciting. But in essence, that point of sales system is what is being tapped into with the information, and you tap in, okay, the student is here, got a full meal, that costs $3, next. Oh, and yes, that one of the features, one of the nice features, thank you, one of the nice features about the new system is that the free and reduced lunch application that parents fill out annually can be done now online through the system. It cuts down on having to do it in a paper copy and turn it in, which again, still can be done. Paper copy and turn in is acceptable, but they can now do their free and reduced application online. It speeds up the process with regard to getting it back to our food service department, and the turnaround time is shortened through that method. Plus, again, convenience for families as best we can.
Any other questions from the board? No.
Thank you.
And Mr. Francis, just as a clarification, I know we discussed this at length in our committee of the whole meeting. The app is free for families to download. There will be a small service fee if they choose to add money to their account through the app.
Correct.
But there's still no service fee if they chose to send a check in or send cash in or something along that line to load that onto their child's card.
Correct. All of that was correct, yes. The service fee is similar to, I've paid tuition online, and they put some percentages on there because it's what they call a convenience fee, and not putting a check in the mail or going to the actual office to pay it.
Okay.
So similar idea.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burden.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 7C, approval to purchase furniture for elementary schools, 2013 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burden.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the purchase for elementary classroom student chairs and classroom activity tables from Interior Environment, Novi, Michigan, for a cost of $610,255.91. Elementary student desks, stand-up desks, and classroom tables from Staples Business Advantage, Livonia, Michigan, for a cost of $544,256.75, and Hokey stools from Great Lakes Furniture Supply, Holland, Michigan, for a cost of $132,621, for a total cost of $1,287,133.66.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Bradford. Mrs. Scott, I believe you'll be addressing this item for us.
Thank you, President Burton. As a result of the 2013 bond, it is our pleasure to recommend the approval of the purchase of the elementary classroom student furniture. This will replace the main student workstation in each general education classroom and our local and county full-time resource program classrooms K through 6.
And again, we've had the pleasure to not only discuss this, we've seen some of these items.
Yes,
and
some of you got to sit on them.
Sat on them
Yes.
and done all kinds of fun. Yep. Again, there's this and other items from the 2013 bond have been a great asset to our school district, and we don't go without thanking our community for supporting that bond that continues to benefit our students and our staff in our buildings. Are there any other questions or comments? Yeah.
I was just going to ask Mr. Smith to just talk a little bit about pricing in the contract we entered when we purchased the secondary furniture.
Yeah, certainly. A year ago or so, we did go out for formal bids for the furniture. At that time, we were looking for furniture very specific to secondary programs, but we understood that there was going to be a need at the elementary level, and the sizes and configurations that were needed at the secondary might not necessarily work in an elementary setting. So at that time, we asked for pricing in a lot of different configurations, knowing that with the goal of being able to utilize that a year or 2 years later when the time was right and the committee had made the final decisions. For the most part, we were able to do that with the desks and chairs. There were a couple pieces that we've worked with the various vendors and are working through change orders for. But by and large, all of that pricing we took, they guaranteed it for a 3-year period, which even in this hot economy, those prices have been locked in. They're really a turnkey price. They're right on board, delivered, installed, boxes in the trash, ready for everyone's use. I think the biggest challenge for facilities will be just how and we're working on that, is how to get rid of all the, not get rid of, but how to take the old furniture out and install the new. and that'll be the next hurdle once we get, we'll be working with Mrs. Scott, finalizing material selections very shortly, and placing those orders should the vote go well tonight. And then the next challenge will be to work on a game plan to strategize the replacement of the furniture.
Thank you. Other questions and comments from other board members? Mr. Centers?
Mrs. Scott, this is a long time tested and vetted purchase, correct? This is something that our school buildings have tried out and they feel very comfortable with.
They have. Our committee that was formed after the bond, the 2013 bond, they were able to select the desk and the chair and the table. And so they were able to try that out and to pilot those. And other teachers were able to view them and to try them out. And then the elementary principals then went through a process of selecting some other ideas for flexible seating. And so those two were taken to the school so that teachers could have an opportunity to look at those and view those and see if they would be ones that they would be interested in using in their classrooms every day. And we had an overwhelming majority of the teachers excited about that opportunity, since many of our classrooms have already begun using flexible seating on their own.
Great. Thank you.
Are there other comments or questions? Mrs. Frank?
Just to clarify, classroom activity tables, that is not like ping pong tables. Those are tables that they can read at. They can just maybe to clarify that and exactly what the hokey stools are and exactly what flexible seating is.
Okay. The flexible seating is finding the ideal place for a student to learn depending upon the task, and part of it being their choice of where they would like to learn, their most optimal place for that activity. The activity table is a 2x3, if I remember correctly, Mr. Smith, and it's usually a low table, so approximately about 15 inches from the floor, but in this particular case, these tables can be raised, but it's so that the student can sit on the floor like on a carpet square and do the activity at that point. You can raise them so that you can sit in another type of seating if that's preferable. And then you said the hokey stool. The hokey stool, let's see, it's almost like a mushroom type shape, and you can move in it. I'm not sure exactly how, I don't have it with me, but yes, and then you can sit there and you can move just a little bit while you are learning.
For students who need some more flexibility than sitting in a standard chair, it would not be a whole classroom of them, just a couple of them for students who need more.
Correct. We're buying 6 for each one of the classrooms, and so that way they can use it possibly at their small group instruction table, or if they don't need all 6 of those, then possibly using them in another cases. So I expect each classroom will use them in different ways. You're welcome.
Are there questions from other board members? Comments? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Bradford. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers says yes. Mrs. Bradford?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield?
Yes.
Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burden?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 7D, approval of bid results for science equipment 2013 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bradford?
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District purchase science equipment for use in all secondary science content areas: chemistry, biology, physics, and middle school sciences. This purchase would be from several vendors utilizing budgeted resources from the 2013 bond at a total cost of $580,590.89. Fisher Scientific, $4,033.50. Parco Scientific, $4,200. Pasco Scientific, $133,453.59. School Specialty, Frey Scientific, $37,825.38. Vernier Software and Technology, $173,720.52, and Ward's Science, $227,357.90.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mrs. O'Brien.
We are very happy to bring Mr. Hillard and I the secondary science equipment for your recommendation. This equipment will allow students to gather and analyze data, design experiments, and investigate phenomena. This will also allow our students to have more authentic science experiences and support teacher instruction as they meet the shifts addressed in the Michigan Science Standards. Some of the examples of the equipment would be a variety of sensors, which I learned about at committee from Mr. Hillard, that are used for collecting data, creating real-time graphs and reports for students to analyze. Some different types are for salinity in a chemistry lab, or an O2 sensor in a biology class, or a motion velocity sensor in a physics class. This bid is coming in lower than we had anticipated, so Mr. Hillard and I will probably be back to request additional science equipment.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or the board? Seeing none, we have a motion from Mrs. Bradford, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burden.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 7E, approval to purchase algebra textbooks. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Bonifield.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District purchase the textbook Envision Algebra 1, 2018, for secondary Algebra 1 courses from Pearson Education, Inc., at a total cost of $141,046.07.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonifield, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. O'Brien.
So again, we would like to bring for your recommendation the purchase of this Algebra 1 textbook. This would be coming out of our district textbook budget. Mr. Hillard and his committee of teachers followed our district requirements for adopting and following board policies of a textbook committee. They consisted of 2 middle school teachers and 6 teachers representing our high schools. They aligned their curriculum to the Michigan State Standards and the Common Core shifts for teaching mathematics. An Envision Algebra 1 textbook best met their evaluation criteria. It coherently developed the mathematical concepts deemed as the priorities during this analysis. It was noted that this series was rated high for engaging tasks, for deepening conceptual understanding, the flow of topics for purposeful and coherence, opportunities to strengthen and apply procedural skills, and balance conceptual understanding with procedural skills, fluency, and application.
Thank you. Do we have questions or comments from the superintendent or board? Mr. Centers?
Just that this has a online version, is that correct?
It has an online component for the textbook. We have that as for 6 years as a part of this purchase.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Opus?
Just an overall comment, as we take a look at the furniture purchase, which will be of great benefit to our students in every classroom, K-6 across the board. The science equipment, which will impact every student moving through from grade 7 and beyond. It impacts all of our middle school science programs and all of our high school programs, and then now the algebra textbook. So once again, we see the tremendous benefit of the bond issue. Initially, we've seen music purchases coming through. We've seen significant upgrades, renovations, constructions, our performing arts centers. These are some of those pieces that, while the community may not see that, we have items that coming forward this evening that will impact literally every student as they move through.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Mrs. O'Brien, we have this same portion of the discussion, I know, at each time we have textbook purchases, but for the benefit of the public, we are frequently asked whether we should just purchase online books as opposed to hard copy. And this, we discussed at the committee of the whole, falls in the same category whereby we can purchase the hard copy, and in that case, we get the online for free, or we can purchase the online, and then we get the hard copy for free.
Correct. So the price is the same. So they give you purchase one that you are interested in having, and they provide you with the other as a part of your purchase.
Okay. So there is no cost savings in going
There is
online.
There is not.
I don't even know that it's very possible, but it certainly doesn't save anything trying to purchase a strictly online version of a book.
Correct.
Okay. And if we're going to purchase it, we may as well have the textbook, because when that online expires, we'd like to be able to utilize that book for a little longer. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bonifield, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 8, personnel matters, and 8A is teacher for recall. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Frank.
I hope to read the right one this time. Move that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the superintendent and recall to district employment as a teacher for the 2016-17 school year the person listed on the attached document dated April 17th, 2017.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Winry?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Following board authorization on June 6, 2016 to begin the recall procedure, the process was initiated. The report before you contains the name of one person who has been recalled. That leaves one person remaining on the June 4, 2012 layoff list. In the instant case here, this is to fill a mid-year retirement for a physical education teacher. It is budgeted, and we recommend the approval of our recommendation to recall the named teacher.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Frank, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 8B, leaves of absence. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Johnson.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the request for a leave of absence as listed below. Judy Bowling, 2017-2018 school year. Kimberly Duseblan, 2017-2018 school year. Mary Kay Husey, 2017-2018 school year. Danielle Kearney, 2017-2018 school year. J.D. Keefe, 2017-2018 school year. Lindsay Obenauer, 2017-2018 school year. Marlene Scott, April 26, 2017.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mr. Winry.
Thank you. Employees in our various bargaining units are entitled to request and be granted leaves of absence if they meet certain qualifications. These employees have done so, and we recommend approval of the leaves of absence.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments by the superintendent or the board members? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers says yes. President Burden.
Yes. Thank you. The motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 8C, resignations. There is no motion necessary for this. This is just for board information. The next item on our agenda is item 8D, retirements. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolutions of appreciation for the services rendered by Beth Buffington, Brock Butcher, Mary Clark, Judy Del Greco, Linda Dodd, Kathy M. Fox, Jody Harris, Bonnie Jagus, Tracy Lemke, Ernest McCall, Melody Provencher, Elizabeth Roberge, Mary Rosner, Jacqueline Sanders, Tammy Spangler-Tim, and Barbara Trzynski.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Winry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This retiree list before you totals 16 employees. And those 16 employees have a total service to the Livonia School District of over 375 years. Very impressive. Average service over 23 years per person. On behalf of administration, it'd be my honor to congratulate these employees and thank them for their loyal and lengthy service with the school district, and we recommend approval of the resolutions.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or members of the board?
Just that there's a lot of familiar names here, and congratulations.
Yes.
So a lot of teachers here who I've worked with in the past or who've taught my children, and I'm so sorry to see them go, but wish them well as they move on.
Absolutely. Mrs. Frank.
I just want to echo that too, but also Mrs. Provencher is here tonight, and I just wanted to say thank you. We came to Riley, and not only does she do a phenomenal job of teaching music, but she also was the president of the PTA for several years and is the treasurer of the PTA. So she goes above and beyond and volunteers for the school and does amazing things at the school, and I just appreciate it, and we will miss you greatly. So thank you for all that you do.
A quick note, we have a number of secretaries on this list and building supervisors as well. And so each of those folks are pretty essential folks in their schools. And I know you will see some names on here that will certainly be sorely missed. We also have one of our administrators, Mrs. Spangler-Tim, also as well, who will be retiring. So congratulations to all of our staff on here, and to Mrs. Provencher, who's stuck it out through the whole meeting. Congratulations.
Are there other comments or questions from the board? I'd like to echo comments of my board colleagues. This is one of the bittersweet things that we do as board members. We are so excited for you at your next step, and yet when you look down a list of names like this, there are inevitably folks who have been instrumental in molding your own children. Those are hard to say goodbye to, but we won't say goodbye. We will just wish you well in your next chapter, and hopefully we'll see some of you folks again as you're visiting in the district. Please do. Congratulations. We have a motion right now from Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Centers, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Center says yes. Mrs. Bonifield.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradford.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
President Burden.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 9, hearing from board members. The first item is item 9A, first reading of board policy DJE, purchasing. May I have, I'm sorry, we don't need a motion for this item. Mrs. Opus, would you like to briefly address this item for the board?
I will actually have
for
Mrs.
the public,
Smith,
the board does.
Thank you. I will have Mrs. Smith do so for us, and if she would like to cover the combination of these board policies and the creation of the new policy DJE.
Thank you very much. Yes, in looking at the 3 board policies that we currently have in the books, it became apparent that we had some need to update through some changes that have taken place in the district over the years. So we took that opportunity to simplify and streamline 3 separate board policies and combine them into one purchasing policy that addresses everything for the district. And we also took the opportunity to update the administrative policies that go along with that.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members on this policy? Again, this is one that we've been taking a look at for quite some time. And this board also has been spending quite a bit of time over the last few years going through and cleaning up a lot of board policy. We have unknown people in 1988 that clearly did a really good job laying the bones for our board policy, and they have been revised and revisited many, many times. It's done on a regular basis throughout the years. But this board has undertaken the task of making sure that on a comprehensive level, all of these policies are are being reviewed. So in addition to that comprehensive look, we are also taking policies on an as-needed basis as folks take a look at them and have the time to dig into individual items. And we thank you very much for taking this under your belt and getting this policy or this combination of three cleaned up and down into one much more concise document. So thank you. This is not up for a vote this evening. Policy changes require 2 readings at 2 general meetings. So this is up just for a first reading right now, which board members have, and it will be voted upon at our next monthly meeting. The next item on our agenda is item 9B, hearing from board members. Some time ago, this board began undertaking the practice of, rather than having 7 of us reiterate thank yous, and folks are here later than they need to be on an already late evening. Rather than that, we have asked each board member to take a given evening and offer thanks and congratulations on behalf of the board. Certainly after that, any other board members, if they have anything, you're welcome to add to our comments this evening. This evening, Mrs. Bradford is going to be taking care of hearing from board members on behalf of the Board of Education.
Thank you, President Burton. Wow, it was an exciting evening at the beginning. I have to say, on behalf of the board, how proud I am of all of the activities that are happening throughout our district currently and all of the points of pride that are going on, starting with the art gallery back here. I think we all reiterated how wonderful it is to have art in our background here. So it's very nice. Again, Jessica Week, state champion on the uneven bars. I don't take much credit, but she was my girl in my Girl Scout troop, so I'm just going to throw that in there as a young girl, so I think I influenced her pretty well. Anyways, I'm really proud of her and her accomplishments, and so is this board. Wow, the Lighthouse Milestones and Emerson Food Pantry and Franklin High School Pantry. A shout out to Emerson. Recently, it just seems like Emerson's had some great things happening in their building. Ann Emerson does a fabulous job, as well as the staff and the students over there. And I also, too, attended that leadership day and was so impressed by the students' poise and just the whole day. It just went so well, and that was great. The food pantries at both Franklin and Emerson, what a wonderful program that they're running over there. So, and most impressive for me was the Cooper Elementary Makerspace. I think I'm going to have to take a little field trip over there, and maybe this board will. Maybe we can sit in there and get our creative juices going, but what a wonderful spot. I want to congratulate our board members on the MASB awards and all your accomplishments. I know we're going to continue to take the courses, and Crystal and I are working diligently, so we'll continue to do that so that we can become an honor board. And Warriors, wow, we've been hearing from the Warriors via Facebook, via Twitter, all over the place, and that's a great thing for our district, and what an opportunity for those students as they travel to Missouri for the World competition. We wish them all the best. And finally, I just want to say our board and administration works really, really diligently and hard, and I know that we will continue to work on all aspects of district happenings that are going on. So just know that your board works very hard, and this administration too. And we're really proud to have this administration working so hard. So thank you so much. And I think that's about it. Does anybody else?
Thank you. Are there comments from other board members this evening? Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you, President Burton. I have to put another shout out to my Livonia Warriors robotics team and just let everyone know that if you're interested in following the competition in the World's competition in St. Louis, that it will be streamed live and that they can access that through the First Organization's website or through firstinmichigan.org.
Excellent.
Can you repeat the name of that website again?
Firstinmichigan.org.
Firstinmichigan.org, okay. Thank you. Mrs. Bonnet.
Can Stacy put that on our website?
Certainly.
Can we link that to?
Mrs. Oquist, is that something that we could put
Certainly.
up on our website?
We certainly can.
Okay. Terrific. And again, that is the weekend of April 26th through the 29th. Okay. Any other comments from board members before we close this evening? It has been a very, very full evening with a lot of participation. Thank you to those who have hung in there, and actually, we do have a few still in our audience. Thank you very much, and I wish all of you well in all of our work that we collectively do to benefit our students. Have a good evening. We are adjourned.